thank you guys for joining us out there on Facebook or YouTube. This is our update on the PPP loan that a lot of us have heard about, a lot of us have taken advantage of. Jerry Bazata is with me. Good evening, Jerry.
Good evening, John.
Let's bring people up to speed on what's been going on. We've done some other shows on this, so if you are wondering about, where we've been and talked about, you can go check those out on our channel. Tonight, Jerry, there's been a couple of things that have happened and there's still a lot of confusion.
I feel like I should go out and get a tattoo that has a PPP running down my arm, Every day when I get an update through the bank about, here's the next interim rule, it's like, okay, what changed? So, John, we're going to keep this very simple tonight because it is still extremely fluid. Number one, we're getting into the forgiveness period. For those of you who were concerned about whether I spent the money or not, the SBA has extended the forgiveness period for 24 weeks. So that was mainly for the restaurants, those that were shut down, those people that couldn't get restarted. They've extended the forgiveness period. So it's gone beyond the 8 weeks. It's now out to 24 weeks. So that's kind of a positive thing.
So that means that now instead of having 8 weeks to use that money for payroll, I can spread it out over 24 or use those additional weeks for payroll.
Correct. Number two, they have not extended the PPP program. There's about $100 million that has not been exhausted yet. Last week was $132 million. They have confirmed that the PPP program for application and funding will expire on June 30th. So any of those people who have not applied for it yet, you have until June 30th. As of June 30th, the SBA is shutting it off. That was the last interim rule that came out. We do not know of any extension to it. We do not know of anything further other than they are going to terminate any future funding as of June 30th. On the forgiveness itself, a lot of the banks are still working through the forgiveness application with the SBA. The SBA is trying to make the determination. Mm-hmm. The banking industry is trying to make this as automated as possible. So a lot of us are working on where you will actually go into a portal or through the online services. For those of you who went to Bank of America, Chase, Webster, some of the bigger banks, MBT, Fifth Third Bank, you will go through the same process of going through an online portal to submit the application, submit your supporting documentation, which will be clearly outlined when you go through the forgiveness process. And then the bank will review it, make sure that it is complete, and then submit it to the SBA. So we're trying to get this as seamless as possible so we have less paper, we have less confusion, and it's pretty well set. So they're still working through those particulars. So relax, everyone. You've got the 24 weeks. Banks are working for it. What you probably will do, and in the case of where I work, we're going to send to our customers an email saying this is how the process will work. Need you to sign in. Need you to submit the paperwork to support it.
When do you expect that? Because of the timeline, are you expecting that to be a July thing, or where you?
No, by the end of June. End of June. Yeah. So within the next week to 2 weeks, we will see that all being cleared up.
Okay.
So, yep. So we should see that pretty much getting cleared up as quickly as possible. So the last thing is, and John, this has been ongoing, and I've been fielding a lot of questions on this. If you are self-employed and you are getting unemployment, and you also had received a PPP loan, it's got to be one or the other in terms of paying yourself every week, all right? Understand that the SBA does have to provide tax ID numbers, Social Security numbers to in fact, report who received these PPP loans. That information is going to be shared in a variety of ways, one of which will most likely be with the unemployment areas. Mm-hmm. So you can't write yourself a check that week for the PPP program and also put in a claim for unemployment. It's got to be one or the other. Again, I don't know how that's all going to thresh out, but I've been talking to people and saying the PPP program was a supplement to unemployment. It was not an enhancement to unemployment. So all of you that are out there that have both of these, I know it's helping you, it's helping your family, but use it wisely. if you're going to write yourself a check so that this loan can be forgiven, you're going to have to report to the state that you received income that week.
Sure.
Okay. Just keep accurate records, everyone, and just think about it. It's not the two of them don't go hand in hand. Again, to be clear, the payroll protection program was to keep people off unemployment. Okay. It wasn't a enhancement to the unemployment. It was not to go hand in hand. That was the process behind the payroll protection program. So just think about it when you're doing it. I know, again, I'm not in that position, but I do understand everyone out there who is trying to make ends meet. The income that was lost on photo booth, weddings, we're all struggling. And just be cautious and careful as to how you're using both of those programs.
We've got a question that popped up here. Somebody was asking about for the part of the loan that will not be forgiven. What is the interest rate and how are they going to handle the payback period of that?
Okay, that has also changed too. The interest rate is 4%.
Oh.
And it has now been increased to 5 years.
Okay.
The other piece of it that I want to mention is originally when you had applied, 75% went to payroll, the remaining went to expenses. That threshold has been lowered to 60%. So 60% is for payroll, 40% is for expenses. I also understand they're kind of widening the breadth of what would be considered expenses for the business that could be included within that 40%. We're still waiting for the final directive from SBA as to what we can accept as proof of that. So again, think about it here. Some of you who had maybe a mortgage on your business condo or your warehouse or your vehicle, if you went to the bank and asked for a deferment and you not making loan payments, a lot of people are jumping back to the banks and going, wait a minute, I got the payroll protection loan. I know now 40% of that could be used for payments for my debt. You know what? I want to make those payments. I want to make the payments that were supposed to be deferred. Mm-hmm. So you need to stop and think about that for a minute. If you've deferred payments on your car, for your van, for your business, you've deferred payments on your business condo, or you've deferred payments on your house because you have a home office, you may now want to think about, do I go back and make those payments with the bank so I can use that as part of now that 40% that I have to use towards the payroll protection forgiveness loan.
So you just mentioned the house, making payments on the house with a home office. So that would mean that the part of the mortgage that a person is paying would be?
In the interim that I've read, a part of that is considered to be part of the forgiveness. And again, we're waiting for the final rule on that.
So it could be possibly, yeah.
Possibly. So again, just think about what you're doing. And again, if you go out to the SBA website, they do publish the interim rule changes almost on a daily basis. So again, this is very fluid because what they want to do is they want to make sure that they're covering all bases. Because of the states holding back and changing the rules, weddings being pushed back. And I know for many, as I talk to numerous DJs out there, we've lost a lot of our weddings for June, July. I've lost all mine for September. I have 3 left in October. So again, looking at where that's all going, just kind of keeping track of what you can write off. So if you've asked for deferments, you may want to think about, once you get that information from where you applied and what you can submit, you may want to think about making those payments if in fact it's going to go towards the forgiveness.
Another question here. When we're talking about a solo or a sole proprietorship, has that changed anything? When we talked last time, it was line 31, 2.5 times, I believe, line 31 on a test.
That hasn't changed. Okay. That has not changed at all. No, I have not seen anything that's changed in the qualification as to how you apply for the loan. That has not changed.
Okay. So Dave, what that would be then is line 31 on your Schedule C. You take that, and basically your max loan amount is 2.5 times that particular amount of your line 31 on your Schedule
Correct.
C. Okay.
Yep. And again, part of that, and for Dave's question here is for those of you who have gone through the EIDL loan, and you've been offered the loans there, again, 3.95% over 30 years. Again, a small piece of that is part of the granting program, but you look at the basis. If you get a $30,000 loan and you got 30 years to pay it back, you're basically paying back $1,000 plus interest a year. So, that's a real positive. I know, John, you and I talked prior to coming on that there's a number of people that have looked about returning the loans and actually getting straight bank loans from the payroll protection program. I'm seeing that also too. A number of people that have said, you know what, I'd rather deal with a regular type loan out there. So as we get deeper into this, I think a lot of people are just kind of going back and forth into what can and what can work. Ultimately, what I've read and the discussions that I've been involved in is they're trying to make this as accommodating as possible. And they're looking at it as, did the payroll protection program really be utilized to make sure that people continue to receive income and not use unemployment as a source of continuing to provide personal income for individuals?
Another question coming off the sole proprietor thing. They have the amount of money that they could get for their 8 weeks of payroll. Do they have to, with a sole proprietor, do they have to do that formula we talked about before, which came up to about 70% for payroll, or can a sole proprietor pay themselves more than 70% of that money for payroll?
I'm going to say, let's stick with what we talked about before, paying the 70% for payroll. I haven't seen the final directive on the calculations for the forgiveness. We understand they are changing, but we haven't seen the final calculations yet. So can we table that, whiteboard that question, and when we get the next update, hopefully I can have some clearer information on that.
So just to give you guys an idea what that was last time when we talked about this, is you take that line 31 in the Schedule C, 2.5 times that's the total amount. But then you have to take that number divided by 52, and then 8 weeks of that could be your payroll, and then the balance of that was to go towards other business expenses. That was at that time, that was the knowledge we had and the best numbers we had. How that changes in the next 10 days or so, 2 weeks, we'll find out more as Jerry brings it back.
And again, I think in the sole proprietorship, because we haven't gotten into the weeds of it yet, since they've stretched it out to the 24 weeks, you may be able to take that number and divide it by 24. So just thinking through it right now, John, and again, I will get more clear information for everybody. Since it was the forgiveness period was 8 weeks, if it makes sense that they've now stretched it out to 24 and they've lowered the qualification down to 60% only has to be used towards payroll, the sole proprietor may fall under that same rule, but let me get some more clarification on that.
Sounds great. Ronnie's asking a question. Sole proprietor again, receiving unemployment, and they also received the PPP. Should they wait and utilize the PPP after the unemployment runs out, or should they use the PPP then the unemployment? Or what would you recommend, or have any thoughts on that?
Again, this is Ronnie, you're going to know better than anybody else, is when do you think your unemployment's going to run out? Are they going to stop the 600 as of July 30th? That we don't know. So what I really would need to know, Ronnie, is when did you receive the money? If we're going out 24 weeks, does that get beyond the number of days that you have for your unemployment? That's what you're going to have to really figure out. You're going to have to sit down with a calendar. Remember those paper calendars we used to give out at the banks years ago, John?
Yes, I do. And I don't have one here. You're going to have to take that calendar. You're going to have to sit and figure this out. Okay. You're going to have to sit there and look at, okay, I received the PPP on May 1st. All right. 24 weeks out brings me to X date. Well, I received unemployment and I have unemployment eligible for 39 weeks. Where does that fall? And when am I going to run out of my unemployment? And when do I put the PPP in? Or do I extend the period of time? It's really sort of a numbers game. And it's really kind of looking at that paper calendar and counting out the weeks and figuring it out from there. To make a blanket statement that, use the unemployment first and then do the PPP. Well, if the unemployment extends beyond your 24-week forgiveness, you're going to be in trouble. Big trouble,
Yeah, so you're really going to have to sit down and kind of figure that out on pen and paper.
Another question. They've received the Was it EDIO?
Yeah.
They received that loan.
EFG, whatever.
Whatever that first loan was. What can that one be used for? Is there are there stipulations on that one, or is it just basically use it and here's the interest rate and here's the payback?
That was to provide working capital for the business, so you can use it any way you want. They're not going back and asking you to provide proof of what you spent it on. So no, there's no Pacific. The only one that had a Pacific guideline was the PPP program. All the other SBA disaster relief loans are really to keep your business running when you have no income coming in. That's what the disaster relief loans are for.
Okay. I think we've caught up. I think we're good.
Oh, good.
Excellent. Jerry, we'll have to come back in a couple of weeks here, hopefully, and get an update of where things are and what's going on. If people have some questions about the financing side of things, what's the best way for them to reach out to you if they have any questions?
Let's try this again, John. Jerry at MaineDiscJockey.com, Maine like the state Maine, or easily you can always give me a call on my cell phone and write this number down, 617-543-6499. I will definitely get back to you within 24 hours. You can always email me, reach out to me, Facebook, LinkedIn. Glad to answer what questions I can for you. Again, I tell everybody it's very fluid. Things are changing constantly. The best way to know is to go out to the SBA website. I know for many people this is confusing. We have never been through something like this before. And for self-employed, in the history of unemployment, we've never had unemployment for self-employed individuals. So it is confusing. What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to be kind of 2 years down the road, somebody's going to catch up with me and go, you did this all wrong and this is no longer forgiven and now you have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
Think about it this way here, guys. Unemployment, if you're getting the 600 and you're getting the state unemployment, you're going to have to report and pay taxes on that. This is not free money. Okay. So at the end of the year, if you've gotten $600 for, 40 weeks, that's going to be, whatever number that is. All right. You're going to have to pay taxes on this. So you need to be putting money aside and thinking about that at the end of the year, because there is a line on your tax return that says, did you receive unemployment compensation? And they're also putting in, did you receive the PUE? And you know what? That's income you're going to have to report. So you need to be prepared for that.
Exactly. For some folks, that could be a surprise at the end of the year or early next year.
Figure if you got $30,000 in unemployment compensation times a 20% tax bracket, that's a $6,000 tax bill right there,
waiting for you in January.
Right. And think about us unemployed. Think about us. How many of us are buying equipment? We don't have write-off on mileage because we're not doing weddings. You don't have expenses of meeting with couples. You don't have meals expense. Who knows who's going to go to what trade shows that you can write off of. So, the flip side to this is all this is income's coming in and you're getting it to support yourselves, which is absolutely true. And you need it. But on the flip side is you don't have the expenses that you would have normally had to offset it.
Yes.
And that's something, John, we'll talk about as we get into later on in this year, about the real issue of you've got all this income coming in to support you, but you don't have the business expenses that you would have normally had.
So we may have some people needing to invest some money between now and the end of the year. Hopefully,
exactly.
If the business picks
the
up.
stock market was up today. What do we want?
It's a crazy world. Jerry, once again, thank you much for being on. Gang, we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Dan Carpenter and I will be back at the top of the hour. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a great evening.